CNBC TV 18 Weekender.
Hello and welcome to the CNBC TV 18 Weekender. Our team has travelled all the way to Oragadam in Chennai to meet a man who runs the most profitable motorbike company in the world. He's someone who's achieved perfect harmony between man, machine and terrain. Let's go and meet Siddharth Lal of Royal Enfield. Thank you for being a part of our show.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a wonderful ride. I'm sure you've heard that a lot. But how did it start?
Well, for me or for the company?
For you, because
Okay.
I know corporate legend has it that at the age of 26, you took over and you decided not to sell the Royal Enfield brand. How did you get the motivation to do that?
It's nearly there, yeah. I mean, I've always fancied two wheels. So ever since I was a kid, I used to love bicycles. And I used to actually literally just cycle around everywhere. I was a little terror on two wheels even when I was like 4 years old. So I was just always cycling. And I love two wheels. And I honestly couldn't care much about business. Obviously not when I was 3, but even when I was 18, 20, the last thing on my mind was business, right? I mean, that was really dull and all of that. So around when I was turning 18 is when the family business Eicher Group bought Royal Enfield. And I was like, oh, that looks nice. And I looked at the motorcycle and that was really cool. So that's how the interest started. And then my dad had one, of course. And I used to sneak it out and I used to ride it. This is after I was 18, of course. But I used to just sneak it out. Eventually, I just took it over and I used to ride it to college every day. And I used to go to DU and and then I was in my bike and it was really cool to ride a bike in those days. So I really grew to the motorcycle. And then when I was bumbling around, I was studying somewhere, I was doing something else and everything else, and not really involved deeply in the family business. But I'd done a small internship at Royal Enfield in 1996. So around the year 99 or so, my father had also retired in 97. He was no longer chairman of the company. Of course, he's the majority shareholder, but wasn't really involved in running the company. But he told me, oh, look, the management is considering selling off a couple of businesses, including Royal Enfield. And till then, I hadn't even thought about it much. And then at that point, I was like, oh, no, that's not nice. I don't want that to happen. And it suddenly, my life, flashed in front of my eyes or something silly like that. But not really as dramatic as that. And I was, so I figured that is something that I've always harbored a dream somewhere in the back of my mind that I'll work in Royal Enfield. And then I said, so I had a chat with my dad and he had a chat with the management and
then the rest, as they say, was history?
The rest was history. We were given a time scale. I came to Royal Enfield and I said, how tough can it be, I mean, all you need to do is these beautiful motorcycles. We're selling 1,500 of them in a month. All we need to do is sell 2,000 and we'll be okay. And, that's the starting point. And then the rest is history, because it was certainly not easy as just selling 500 more motorcycles.
Oh yes, I'm sure it wasn't. I'll come to that in a bit. But before that, I do know that you do these long rides. You've done them in the north, in the south, and abroad as well. Which has been your most adventurous ride so far?
Well, many, but my most beautiful and breathtaking ride ever was in 2010 in the Himalayas, where unfortunately that was also the time when all the floods happened in Leh and in Pakistan, if you remember, in the mountains. But we were right in the middle of that. Fortunately, nothing happened to us, but all the roads had been washed up, and eventually we got rescued by helicopters. But perhaps even, let's say, a step not more adventurous, but certainly more crazy was when I was very young, and I took a Enfield motorcycle at that time from the distributor in UK, and I travelled all around Europe for a month with with just a tent and a backpack. and just strapped up on my motorcycle, and I just went. I used to pitch a tent somewhere, and I used to, I didn't know the language. I was in France, I was in Spain, in Italy.
So when you travel to Himalayas, is that where you got the idea about the Himalayan from?
Well, it certainly strengthens the idea of the Himalayan, but I have to confess that the idea of the Himalayan was probably not mine.
Really? Whose was it?
I don't think it was any one person's. I think it was, there are a few chaps in our organization who are very deeply invested in the Himalayas, much more than I am, even though I am very invested in all of that. The idea was always there. Eventually we decided that, okay, we need to do it now ourselves. The time has come. We have the capability, we have the understanding, we have the engineering power and the money to be able to put on a project which we have no idea where it will go, but let's do it.
You've done this, and you've done this really well. I mean, you've mastered the art of making these great niche bikes for the urban, consumer or rider. But where do you go next?
At the first level, we're still playing out the India story. So that story, while we've done a good job, it's by no means sort of tapering off. There's a lot more to go. We're able to, there's a lot more to go in the urban centers that we're very strong in, but also now increasingly we're finding that that smaller towns are appreciating our motorcycles. So on the one hand, over the next few years, we expect to continue to grow rapidly due to distribution penetration in India, right? Because that's what a lot of our competitors did 10, 20 years ago, and we are going through that phase now. But the real big one, let's say the new Royal Enfield, is what for the last 2 years, what we've been creating, which is, we've been creating an organization really, which is in order to meet our long-term aspiration of becoming a real global motorcycle player. We think that, like in India, where there was a huge number of commuter motorcycles, there was, before Royal Enfield, or if you take Royal Enfield out, there's no evocative, fun,
Harley is too expensive,
beautiful middleweight motorcycles. There's nothing. Then there's some exotic motorcycles on there, but it's not for everybody, right? So, but the same way that we are here in India, we believe in markets like Southeast Asia, Latin America, there is no good middleweight motorcycle. So we believe globally there's a deficit of middleweight motorcycles. We believe that even in Europe, US, where we've got extremely good reaction for our motorcycles, just because, there aren't any such good motorcycles in the middleweight. So that's really our endeavor, is to create a different sort of company.
So apart from riding, what else is Siddharth Lal passionate about?
I like to relax actually. That's what I like to do. So when I'm not working, I like to chill, I like to read, I love to be in a beach, I love to be in a mountain. I'm going to go out, open my mind, think, enjoy doing things with my hands, doing things, walking around.
And that's how you get inspired.
I like cooking a lot. So these days, now that I'm in London, I get to cook a lot, I get to play football a lot with my son. So that's the kind of thing I like to do. I mean, it's not really very sexy, but it's just fun. So, yeah.
Oh wow, I never knew that apart from riding, you like to cook as well. On that note, we're going to take a short commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to talk a little more about the industry and the dynamics that Siddharth Lal sees for himself in conjunction with the industry. Stay with us on CNBC TV 18 Weekender.
But the point is that we used what we could and what we had, and the available tools, which didn't cost us. Website didn't cost us much. Doing rides didn't cost us much. So we did rides. We used our website, we bypassed all of you guys, all the channels and all the big TV adverts and all of that.
CNBC TV 18 Weekender.